In the middle. Okay, we're live. We're live.
We're live, everyone.
Yeah,
Welcome to an
welcome.
honest look.
Yeah, welcome to the Honest Look. Yeah, and as always, I'm Rick Rubenthal. I haven't changed my name in I don't know how long.
Your entire life.
Well, apparently my parents gave it to me, and I'm kind of stuck with it for a while, anyways. Yeah, welcome everybody. I have my fabulous friend and co-host and fellow coach Fatih Light with us today. And Fatih, we have a guest tonight, don't we?
We do. Kylie Gillette, welcome to an honest look. We're very excited to have you here. We cannot wait to dive in with you.
Yeah,
Welcome.
thank you. Thank you, Pati and Rick. I appreciate it.
Amazing. So I want to introduce you guys to Kylie briefly, and then we'll let him just take the floor and go with it.
Yeah.
So Kylie Gillette is an ICF-certified coach, behavioral analyst, and a creator of the Blue Shirt Leadership Framework that he will probably talk to us about since it's something that he has pivoted into recently, right? And he helps leaders and small business owners become the leaders they're meant to be. He's the host of the Blue Shirt Leadership podcast, the author of Sage Leadership, a 4-part framework for becoming a people first leader, and the owner of Blue Shirt Coaching, a coaching and consulting organization. Welcome to the show, Kylie.
Yeah, thank you so much. So I did wear a blue shirt to make sure to represent appropriately. And there's actually a blue undershirt too, so I'm doubling it up here.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
You got your blues down.
Got my blues down. So I recently rebranded from something that was called Sage Mindset into a new business, which is Blue Shirt Coaching, and it mostly had to do with some legal stuff that was all accidental, but it got itself worked out and opened up this new channel for me to focus on. But the framework is still the same. I still have all that content, all that information for people, so I can talk a little bit about that or talk a little bit about my background, wherever you want me to take it.
Actually, we want to know a little bit about you. Tell us about you. Tell us how you got to this career path. What took you here? How what was the thing that drove you to become a coach?
Yeah. So have either one of you been on an orange farm before?
I've seen them on the commercials.
On the commercial. Okay. So I grew up in California on an orange farm, 40 acres of oranges, and my dad's an entrepreneur. He started the orange business when he was in his 20s. He had my sister, just had my sister, and he went for it all out. And so entrepreneurship is in my blood. And I didn't know that until I hit this really crappy point in my life when I was in college. But when I got to that point, I got exposed to all kinds of really cool opportunities to be mentored. And then that triggered the realization that, I should run my own business. But I was in college and I was afraid to become an adult. I don't know if you guys ever hit that point in your lives when you're maybe
I'm kind of working on it a little bit.
Okay. So, but I remember sitting at a desk like the one I'm sitting at now, and being 40 pounds overweight and actually covered in poison oak. I had gone on a hike with my buddies and went off trail and got poison oak all over myself. So between being really overweight and really stressed and covered in poison oak, it was just this microcosm of where my life was. I was still in college, and I was also behind by like 9 units in college, and I didn't know it. And I had 2 quarters to make it up. So everything was a pretty big wreck. And I think it was mostly because I was afraid to become an adult. I was a senior in college, and I was going, I don't know what I'm gonna do with myself. And I was terrified. So I called my parents, because that's who I knew to talk to that could probably help me with it. So I talked to them for a bit, and they tried to comfort me. It didn't work. But 2 weeks later, I got a phone call from a buddy that said, hey, there's this men's mentoring program that I think you should be a part of. And as I'm hearing this, I'm going, great, it'd be cool to get mentored and have these experiences. And he's like, but I want you to be a leader in the program. And I'm over here a wreck, and really at a really bad place in my life. And they're asking me to be a mentor. And so I end up saying yes to an interview. I take the interview, and it's this beautiful, idyllic 20-acre ranch, rolling green hills in the middle of San Luis Obispo County. And I interview with the director of the program and the president of the program. And after sitting there for an hour and a half in this ratty couch on this blue carpet in this old 1800 and something farmhouse. They asked me, do you want this job? And what it meant was I was going to move in with guys that are 18, 25, they're off track in life, like I was, and help them get traction in their lives. And I remember answering and saying, well, I feel like someone's pushing my shoulders down into this couch and telling me to stay. And so I stood up, shook their hands, and said yes. And that began a 9-year journey of mentorship of other people and then myself being mentored. But that took me out of one of those low places in life in a big way.
I'm kind of curious. Like I really love that part of that story. So you were in a low point in your life, and somebody saw something in you that says, I'd love you to be part of this, but I want you to lead it.
Yeah.
So what was it, the act of that kind of switched you around from sort of this, I'm in this muck? Like, was there some kind of transformation between that muck and all of a sudden you're here for 9 years? Kind of like, I mean, that's remarkable when you think about it.
Yeah. I mean, one of the big things was I had an advocate all of a sudden. I had 2 advocates,
Okay.
Primarily the president of the program that was advocating for me and supporting me and mentoring me. And then the director of the program too. They believed in me. And it's not that I didn't have people that believed in me before, but it was friends and family. And it's different when a quote unquote stranger starts to advocate for you and believe in you. And then I also realized that I was then that stranger to the guys that I was living with, that I needed to be their advocate. And if I couldn't stand up on my own 2 feet and get myself to a good place, how in the world could I try to help them get to that place themselves?
Yeah, good point.
So that turned into training for a half marathon. That turned into a lot of things, but just a lot of things changed because I had someone that was loving on me and cared for me that was pretty much a stranger at the time. And I needed to do the same for others.
So the focus was more towards something outside of yourself in the sense of, right? It's the old paradox. Once I start serving others, I can't help but serve myself, kind of a deal.
Yep. Because I needed to take care of myself to serve them. And when I did that, I all of a sudden had a leg to stand on when it came to what I was asking them to do.
Yeah. And
that then gives you confidence. And then I had the mentoring behind that too, as well, where I got the support I needed when I got lost, because I got lost plenty of times. I mean, because I didn't have that drug and alcohol history that those guys did in a lot of the cases.
Yeah.
I had a lot more stability in my life, which I'm super grateful for. But then I got to use that to help them because I could be stable and be a rock and consistent for them. But I needed to get there myself. And so it all came around in that way.
Wow, wonderful. Very cool.
Yeah. So
and you spent 9 years on that journey there?
Yeah. So the first year I lived in the house with the guys. Then I started a personal training business and ran that for a year and a half. And I did that while I ran the pet resort as well. So they had a pet resort on the property to raise all the money for the program. So it didn't have to have donations. So after I did that live in the house thing, I did the personal training thing for a bit and then also did the pet resort for a little while. Then quit the personal training thing and did the pet resort for, I think it was 3.5 years. And that's where I learned how to, what I say is lead the unleadable. Because most of the time, when you look at these guys that come into the program, they don't look leadable. And they even say that they're not. The way that they act, the way they behave, the way they talk, they just don't look it. But they're at the lowest point in their lives, really. They come to this program because they're at one of the lowest points in their lives. And what they really need is some love and some discipline. And that's what we provided for them through jobs, through hugs, through encouraging words, through classes, those types of things. Without that, who knows where they would have ended up. But because they got both the love and the discipline through us, not just me, but other people too, it changed their lives. And I'm still in contact with several of them, and their lives are in beautiful places now.
Wow.
It sounds like they gave you a sense of purpose at that point of your life, right? What's coming up for me is, oftentimes people either they have a supportive system at home, so they have that model, or they don't. It sounds like the people that you were supporting didn't. And it really took someone giving them that support for them to be able to, get unstuck and like change their lives. But I wonder for you, like I could guess, right? For you, it sounds like from what you were sharing that you had that support from family and friends, but you never had that validation from the outside world, right? And at the same time, when given the opportunity, because that modeling was there for you already, you were able to just share that with others, right?
Yeah, I mean, I did. I was very blessed, very fortunate to have that type of support from
Right.
family, extended family, and friends.
Right.
But what it did was I didn't take much risk as a result.
Right.
Where other people, they are either forced into taking risk because they're in a rough position, or they've just taken risk because that's more how they're wired. And I wasn't wired to take risks. And so this was one of the first significant risks in my life where I went, I don't know what I'm doing, and this is terrifying. And I'm 22 years old and I'm really not qualified, but I'm going to do it anyway. And that was the beginning of learning how to take career risks, how to take personal risks to impact other people. Because I don't take risks for myself for the most part. I take them for the benefit of other people. And that sounds a little altruistic, and that's not always the case, but that is typically why I do it. And that was a catalyst for me. Someone else took a risk on me by even offering to introduce me to this program because he learned a little bit about me and trusted me. And that alone was a lesson in and of itself. And so from there, I continued and went and took the risk myself.
Yeah, it's amazing. Just prior to us coming on, me and Fatih were just talking about I'm in a kind of a workshop, and the subject came up about the phrase "in spite of," and I kind of love it because it what you're speaking to is sort of that point of, in spite of my fears, in spite of my insecurities, in spite I don't have all my ducks in a row, I'm still going to take that step. Because now, for me, there's sort of something is saying this is the right thing to do. Like I don't have to analyze it.
Yeah.
I guess you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah, you get that intuitive, and that was the hands on my shoulders at the program.
Okay.
Right. And since then I've had various visions of either voices in my head, and I don't mean like scary voices in my head. I just mean like this confirmation deep within, but often for me I call it a thought that's not my own. And it comes to me and I attribute it to God personally. And that thought comes to me, or that idea comes to me, and then I pursue it. And if it doesn't pan out, then I fooled myself, or it wasn't meant to be, or I didn't put the right effort in. But I want to follow that thought. I want to follow that voice.
Yeah.
And that's actually how the Blue Shirt framework came about. That's how starting this business came about. That's how a lot of this stuff in my life has come about.
That's beautiful, because there's a metaphor. I don't know, like pulling strings on a sweater. I don't know if you ever,
Yes.
come across, like, right, it's like you got the sweater and all of a sudden you pull a string, and sometimes the string just comes right out, and sometimes it's like, oh my goodness, this is unraveling pretty good. It's like
I like the metaphor of we all have strings in our lives, and eventually they start to interweave, and then eventually they become a rope that we can hold on to and keep on pulling on that and trusting that it's leading us to ultimately where we're supposed to go, which I don't think ever really has an end. But as they wrap around each other, you get these strands that wrap and they get stronger and stronger. Therefore, you can trust that rope more and more to grab onto it and pull yourself forward towards wherever it is that rope is leading you to. And hopefully there's a clear vision up ahead of where it's taking you. But as when you look back retrospectively, you often find that there are these strands. And then all of a sudden you go, oh, wow, they are weaved together. And it is why I am here where I am. And I'm sure that's your guys' case as well. And once you get it, then you go, oh, there's the rope. Now I can grab a hold of it, and it's firm, and you can trust it. Even if you fall, you can still trust it because it's going to catch you, just like if you're rock climbing or something.
Yeah.
What I also love about this story is that, when we think about rock bottom, we tend to think about something really, really, really like a really tragic, or like, I was an alcoholic, I was doing drugs, and, I was self-destructing. But, you know, that just goes to show that everybody's rock bottom is different, right? It's like that threshold that you hit that makes you want to turn things around, you know, like, and it's not the same for everyone. It's absolutely not the same for everyone. It's completely different for everyone and anyone. And sometimes it's not even your most bottom, if that makes any sense. I don't know, like, you know, like you may have hit rock bottom a few times, and it's probably not the worst thing you've been through, but it's the last push that you needed to just start making some changes in your life. So I love that. I wanted to ask you about something else because we talked before and I know a little bit of your story. I wonder if you mind going a little bit into the near-death experiences that you've had and just tell us a little bit how that has shifted things in your life.
Yeah. So after doing the men's mentoring program, doing the pet resort, then I had the opportunity to run the program, and I got into, I'm skipping. So I've had 3 of them, unfortunately, but I'm jumping to the motorcycle one. I started riding motorcycles, and my wife says I can't ride anymore, probably because of the story I'm about to tell you. And I was actually complaining to her yesterday about why can't I have a dirt bike, or why can't I? And she's like, well, think about it. So anyway, I was riding a Harley Sportster, and at the time I was living near the Pacific Ocean. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with Pismo Beach or not, but it's this beautiful area. And there's this development that was just going in, and it was just the asphalt at the time. And you could go back probably a mile and a half into the development, and then you're pretty high up and you could see quite a bit of the Pacific Ocean. So absolutely beautiful view. And I decided I was going to ride up there. So I rode up there, got the view, and I was hanging out, just sitting on the bike, looking at the ocean, just beautiful, right? And the area was pasture land with an asphalt road through it. So it was eventually going to be a bunch of houses, right? But at this point, it was just pasture land, barbed wire fences, and asphalt road. And on the way back, I was just gunning it, going super fast. And on one of the first turns, what I thought was a turn was actually, what I thought was just a hill was a turn. So I was going up the hill and thinking, I'll slow down when I get to the top of the hill and hit the brakes and take the turn. Well, no, it was a turn and a hill at the same time. And I remember going, oh my gosh, I'm going way too fast, and looking at the speedometer, and I'm in this residential area going 50 miles an hour. And I look down and I see that. And then I realized that I can't lean it hard enough, and there's nothing I can do to prevent this crash that's about to happen. So I locked the brakes, which may not have been the best bet, but I locked the brakes, and my front tire hits the curb, because it's the asphalt curb like you see in some neighborhoods. And I go flying 30 feet through the air. My legs get wrapped up in the barbed wire fence, and then I slam my head down on the ground. And when I wake up, the motor is no more than 15, 18 inches from my head. Like the big heavy body of the motorcycle is right there. And I remember looking at it as I'm untangling my legs and going, I don't know why this bike stopped. There wasn't even any dirt dug up. It was weird. You know how normally if something stops, you see the dirt dug up? It wasn't like that. It just stopped for some reason. And I had a pretty bad concussion. I have scars on my legs from the barbed wire fence. But otherwise, that was it. That was the only repercussions from it. And I realized in that moment that there was more. I didn't know what the more was, but I knew there was more contribution for me to give to the world. And it was catalytic in retrospect. So not right in the moment. It didn't change much for me in the moment, but retrospectively, as I've reflected on that incident, it's served me multiple times. And I'm sure you guys and listeners have had that too, where you look back on these moments of your life being spared or crazy incidences, and you go, wow, okay, I'm still supposed to be here. There's contribution for me to leave for this world still. And that's what has happened for me for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's I know what you're talking about when it comes to motorcycles and the, I'll call it the oh shit moment. It's like,
yep.
And yeah,
I do too, by the way.
Yeah, okay, good.
On a Vespa, a little different.
Hey, man, you could get hurt on any of them if you're not careful. It's true.
Went flying a couple of times too, no helmet, but continue.
Scary.
But, you know, with part of that story, what I hear, though, is like you said, you know, here I am. Like, here I am. And I don't know what's ahead of me. And you talked earlier about the rope, hanging onto the rope, that there's something secured about, you know, that rope. And it reminds me of like the hero's journey. Like, we really don't know what's at the end of whatever that journey might be. We just know that we're still part of that journey.
Yeah.
In some form or fashion. And what role do I play? I am not sure. Right. It's sort of like, and like you said, you know, like the one time, like I felt I'm pushed down in this couch. I need to stay here. And so you have this moment, and then you realize that, okay, so what was your next step? Like what came to you as the next step on that journey?
In that moment that I wanted to go to sleep.
Well, yeah, it's like not in that particular, you know.
I know. You know,
how am I going to explain this to my wife now?
Yeah, exactly. So really what happened was after reflecting on that, the next step was I realized that I needed to contribute and continue to be a part of that mentoring program and really give myself and dedicate to it even more. Because at that point, the plan was for me to take over the whole program. I was the director of it, but I wasn't the one fully in charge. I was still present. I was going to become that position, be the complete decision maker. But then life happened. You know, my wife, I ended up getting married after that and having our first 2 kids. And then we wanted to be closer to family. And so now I still had that drive in me to go, okay, I want to make a difference in people's lives, because legacy matters a ton to me, as it probably matters to you guys as well. And some people don't think about legacy, but other people really do. And I've been thinking about that for a long time, because I believe my dad and his dad and other people in my family have left a really amazing legacy. And I want to continue that. I want to do it my own way, because I'm not in the family business, but I want to do it my own way. And so as we left Central Coast of California, I was going, I want to make just as big, if not a bigger contribution to the people up here that I was with the guys in the mentoring program. And so eventually that turned into the coaching, because to me, I see coaching as a multiplication effect, where if I can help the business owner be more successful as an owner, be more successful as a leader, that impacts the families that they're leading, the people that they're leading, and that passes down in really beautiful ways. Yeah. So I would say that one of the key pieces of the fruit of that experience was the drive to continue to make that impact, but realizing that I can't do it. I need an army of people that I can do that with, that play the role as well. You know, the multiplication effect, in other words.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I wonder, you know, since we're talking about, I'm going to ask you this question that I've asked it before, and I've asked myself this question too, right? Like many people in my life, I have turned things around when I hit that rock bottom, right? And we often, like as coaches, we say, you know what, I'm going to share my experience with you so that you don't have to go through that, right? You don't have to hit rock bottom in order to bring on change. Wonder what your take is on that. Is that really true? Can people just have a normal life with no problems, never hit rock bottom, and then just wake up and completely change their lives? Or do we need some degree of a wake-up call, right? Because rock bottom, oftentimes, I see it as a wake-up call. I see it as like alarm bells going off, like, this is not working, right?
Yeah, I was watching this TikTok video or YouTube, I can't remember which one, and they were talking about drilling down into a iceberg and going as deep as they can with the drill, and just seeing all the different layers of what was happening in the years through the ice. And in there's years where it's tropical, which is really crazy, but it's tropical and all kinds of things. And then eventually it stops. And what happens is it hit rock bottom. Like the drill can't go any deeper because it hit concrete, or not concrete, but granite. And so it couldn't go any deeper. And I think though that if you do a good job of evaluating as you're drilling down in a negative way, as you're going down that bad rabbit hole of your life, if you're paying attention enough, you don't actually have to hit that granite and smash your face against it. You can start to see, oh, wait a second, I'm really going low here. And as you're going down that funnel, you can catch yourself. And often that the catching of yourself requires other people. You need other people around you. So the less people others have around them, the more likely they're actually going to hit that granite. They're going to hit that true bottom. But if you have people around you, if they're truly your great friends, they'll let you go down a little while and then alert you to, hey, you're nose diving into some granite and it's going to hurt like crazy. Let me catch you. I can help catch you and give you some insight or bring other people around you, and they'll help catch you. So to me, that's the path to get out of always having to hit the very bottom, is having those people around you and being self-aware enough to go, wait. I'm really far down into this and it's getting really dark. Maybe I can slow my roll a little bit here.
Right. And also asking for help.
Yes.
Why is it that we don't do that? Why is it that we just allow ourselves to go all the way down to the bottom? And we have to hit that bottom to finally just raise our hands and be like, I may need a little help here, right?
Yes, it's so true.
Something that we do, it's something that we do as a society. We want to do it all on our own. Like, there's a lot of value if I just get through this on my own. Then, like,
but that's part of it. Like what Kyle just said, though, is about, that support system, being around people. Right. My experience is that when you initially start off in the rabbit hole, it's say, like, every once in a while you get a little bit depressed and you get sad and it's like, woe is me, it's not working well fast enough, whatever it is that gets you started. You still have a support network out there. You still have people that you're kind of interacting. My experience, particularly in the responder world with first responders, is that the deeper they go, the shallower their bandwidth becomes, and they become more and more isolated, thinking that isolation protects them in some form or fashion. It's kind of counterintuitive, obviously. I mean, knowing what we do know, right? And that's why it always does take a village. But when we're in the thick of things, our bandwidth is so narrow that it limits our own possibilities for whatever. And like you said, Fatih, the wake up call is when I hit myself against the wall, and I go, what just happened? Hopefully, I have enough insight at that time to go back out and kind of reach. The unfortunate part is that, there's so many that have hit that bottom and have felt, okay, there is no hope anymore. I've gone too far and all this other kind of stuff. And we also know that that's not true. I mean, I'm sure you have experience with that in your men's group.
Yeah, I mean, it makes me think about, there's a book, or it's a letter in the Bible. It's James, and in there it says that the effective prayer of a righteous person accomplishes much. But before that, it says, therefore confess your sins to one another. The effective prayer of a righteous person accomplishes much. And in this case, it's about being vulnerable and open. Whether sin is causing you to stumble and fall into that and hit rock bottom isn't really my point. My point is that when you have people around you that you confess what's going on in your life to them, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, you're just sharing your crap.
Yeah,
that is effective. And when you I doubt we want to put bad people around us, so we're going to put righteous people around us, right? We're going to put good people around us, and that's going to be effective and helpful for us. Yeah. And in my history, when I was 18 years old, I started receiving mentoring. And for the last 21 years, I've had a mentor typically on a Tuesday. Every Tuesday or every other Tuesday, I've met with at least one other mentor. Sometimes I served as a mentor, it was an exchange. Other times it's mostly the other person's mentoring me. But for 21 plus years now, I've had men in my life that have loved on me through allowing me to be real and share the crap that I'm dealing with, personal and professional. And that has allowed me to miss smacking my head on the ground multiple times, because I've been an a-hole in my marriage. I've been an a-hole to my kids. I've done a crappy job in my business. And having that support where I can tell them just what's actually going on for real and not hide anything, the ugly too, then even if they have no good advice at all, even if they stumble through crappy advice, I'm like, this is stupid. Just telling them changed my life. And vice versa. I hope that when people have shared with me, because I've done that for other people too, that even if I've unfortunately maybe given crappy advice sometimes, just the act of sharing makes them feel way better, feel in a much different place.
100%. I mean, again,
it's emotional release.
Well, we all want to be listened to.
Yeah.
Right. We all want to be heard unconditionally.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily. I I volunteer for it's a worldwide coaching platform. We just open it up 24/7. People can drop in. It's a Zoom room, and people can drop in and just get some coaching, or in most cases, just get somebody to listen to them.
Yeah.
And there's so much value in deep listening, and I know in you talk about that in your program too, the differences between the listening and deep listening, right? Where you're not judging the other person. It's a free flow in that regards, and it is therapeutic. It's absolutely therapeutic to release whatever's in you, that energy, as Fatih would call it, like that. I'm being heard,
right, and acknowledged, right? Yeah, validated.
I'm here.
Like someone's listening to me, and and oftentimes I also tell people that emotional release, if you don't have anyone around, you can give it to yourself. When you hear yourself say it out loud, you're now processing it in a different way. It's really all about being able to say it out loud, even admit it to yourself, right? Because again, we seem to think that there's medals to be had for just keeping it all inside and doing it all on our own, right?
Well, especially with guys, the tough skin, right?
Right.
Right.
I like the way you said that, Fatih, the idea of there's medals to be handed out because you keep it to yourself, you keep it in. And that's, my dad modeled vulnerability. He cries a lot. and so no, I do too. My mom and my dad, they cry over stupid like Hallmark commercials or some sales commercial. I'm like, what are you doing? And now, I'm getting older and I'm crying about this kind of stuff. But I also cry about things that matter too. And I think being vulnerable enough to do that obviously it helps me to be vulnerable, but to be an example, let people see me as a man do that could change their life, that they see that it's okay to be like that. And sometimes that helps you avoid rock bottom too, where you just cry, just have a good cry. Women talk about, I needed to have a good cry, and they go and have a good cry, whatever that means. But that's what some women do. And I think a lot of men need to do that too. And now that I'm working in the blue collar world, there's so many men that they're so beat up because they have to work so hard and so much, and they hold so much in, and it's this macho world. And what they need to do is let it out, share it with one buddy and let it be free. And that's a big deal. It's hard. Don't get me wrong. It's hard, but there are other avenues, and you can start simply by journaling. I mean, some people, if you're afraid to reach out to someone, just simply start by journaling, and then you'll get a little bit more comfortable with yourself and your own thoughts. And then you could find somebody else, and you'll start to notice that they're vulnerable in these like hidden ways. Because you've started to self-reflect, you'll notice things about them and their body language or their attitude when they're around you. And you'll go, oh, that person's safe to talk to, especially for men. You go, oh, that guy's safe. I can say something to him. And you test the waters. Hey, let's go have a beer. And then you tell them about how you're struggling with porn, or you're struggling with this other woman that you like, or whatever it is, because men, that's kind of their world, right?
So, what are you saying about us?
But that sense of shame and guilt, because that's what it is, right? It's like there's some shame around it. There's a belief there. There's like conditioning around that, right? Especially for men. That very thing is the thing that's going to take you to the bottom, right? Like you said, even just journaling or just voicing it out, sharing it with someone's going to prevent you from getting there to the bottom, right? But the shaming of ourselves, because at that point, when you don't share your own stuff, you're just doing it to yourself. Nobody else is shaming you. Nobody else is judging you. You are judging you, and you are having shame about how you feel of yourself, right? So it really is a self-inflicted, like painful journey, right? Like hitting rock bottom can be avoided by really reaching out, being honest with ourselves, being vulnerable, and just raising our hands and asking for help. Just having someone around to share that with. But we make so many excuses around why not. But like one of my favorite ones always been, well, no one's there to support me, right? And that developed because I didn't feel supported, right, as a kid. So, but when you start catching on to that, you understand also how much of a bullshit story that is, like, and the way out of that is to try something different. Isn't it always like, well, this is always going to give you the same result. Let's just try something different.
Yeah, and I think that's tied to how our brain has to stay in integrity.
Right.
And that's the idea that if I say that this is a classic one that so many people say. They say, I'm really bad at remembering names. As people say that frequently. Shake your hand. Hi, Fatih. Nice to meet you, Kyle. And then you say back to me, I'm bad at remembering names. So that's okay. Me too. Well, your brain has to be in integrity with that. Right. And so your brain has to prove that you're right, that that's true. And so it's going to find ways to make sure you don't remember my name. Mm-hmm. So we tell ourselves a story, and then we believe our brain has to prove that story to be true. And so if we say we struggle with XYZ, then our brain has to prove that it's true. And it's going to give us reasons to struggle with XYZ, whatever that XYZ is. Yeah. It could be relationships. It could be our self-esteem. It could be our business, whatever. And for me personally, I'm at this, the XYZ for me is some of my attitude about my business. I'm telling myself a story because I've had to rebrand, and it's been really dramatic for me the last couple weeks to have to rebrand the whole business and shift and all this stuff. Mm-hmm. And so now I'm giving myself these excuses instead of telling a compelling story.
Yeah.
Which is the answer, in my opinion. The answer is, okay.
Yeah.
What's that?
I said it's the antidote.
Yeah. Yeah. Instead of being stuck with, this is the story I'm telling myself, let's create a beautiful, compelling story of what could be and create it with as much detail and all of our senses. And then our brain has to make that the reality because it needs to stay in integrity with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And we tend to, I mean, part of it is our survival mechanism, but we tend to focus on what could go wrong, what is going wrong. I know a friend of mine used to be a driving instructor for cars, like for teenagers. And
scary.
Yeah. Well, exactly. That's what he said. So thank goodness they have extra controls on the other side of the car. But what he teaches them right away is whatever you focus on, you're going to steer towards.
Yeah.
Right.
And getting into the habit of looking past it, looking into the void, into the emptiness, kind of a thing. And I love that metaphor because that's exactly what you're pointing to. What you focus on is what you're going to slam right up into, kind of a thing. And it's the space around it where salvation is, where possibility is, where healing occurs, all that kind of stuff.
Can I tell you a friend's story here?
Yeah, absolutely. We love stories.
So I have a friend / acquaintance that's in my mastermind, and he's a chiropractor. So the irony here sucks. But anyway, he is a mountain biker, and we have a really amazing mountain biking mountain next to us called Galbraith. And he was riding up there, and the way that it's set up is there's these bridges that are basically the width of a tree trunk. So, either anywhere from this wide to 3 times the width of a tire to maybe this wide. And he was on one of those narrower ones, and he's just riding, and he can handle it going along. And then he narrowed his focus, right? So on a bike, just like you're saying, you want to look at least 20 feet ahead and look in the empty spaces, look to where you want to be versus where you are, where you don't want to be. Mm-hmm. And so he ended up somehow focusing on the fact that he could fall off. And he fell off. But in the process, instead of just falling off and wiping out and like hurting his shoulder, he broke his neck.
Oh.
So the bike fell, and basically he tumbled forward, slammed his head into the ground, and I think he broke his collarbone as well. But that's nothing in comparison to the broken neck.
Yeah.
And he can walk, he can talk, he can move. He didn't lose any function, but he had to go through surgery. And he has two rods in his back to keep him upright. And so he's this chiropractor that's kind of like this, trying to help his patients, and moves really slow. And he's took such good care of himself. But he had that one moment where he focused on the wrong thing. And unfortunately, it was just that situation. And bam, he hit his head, and he's healing. And his attitude, man, you talk about an opportunity to hit rock bottom. His attitude about it has been absolutely beautiful. It's been inspiring to me to watch him heal and watch him just deal with it emotionally and mentally. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't take much to find that wrong thing to focus on. And if you focus on it for too long, you will smash in an unfortunate way.
And going past that, how many stories have you heard where they focused on their injury and the fact that they can't? I have a friend that's going through some cancer right now. She's got breast cancer and doing the chemo, and she was reminded that 90% of her body is still well. Right? It's the cancer is really, in this whole scheme of things, a really small area of your body. So where do you want to focus?
Right.
And your buddy, thank goodness, has that insight to, okay, yeah, you're right. Oh, well, it's like,
oftentimes
I still do this. Sorry.
It's about letting go of the intellect, right? Because the intellect can become your enemy sometimes, right? It can bring you back to the story, right? You keep rationalizing it because you're looking at the evidence. But the evidence is pointing me back to how this story is true, right? So it becomes like you're just chasing your own self, and you get stuck. That's how you get stuck, right? Mm-hmm. And the only way to get unstuck is, unfortunately, to really trust that there might be the possibility of something else is true also, right? Or maybe just experiment with it, right? Because we do try to rationalize the reason why not. And then we always go back to, no, the reason why what this story is true, right? So oftentimes it is about dropping, intellectualizing it, or using your left brain to rationalize it. At least that's what I found for myself. The more I tried to rationalize something for which the evidence was so strong, the more I believed that evidence, right? So it can be a little tricky. It can be a little tricky to understand how to actually pivot out of that, right? And to me, it takes this huge amount of just trust. Just trust, just try it, experiment with it, and see what happens. Because you already know that if that is true for you and you continue to believe that, you already know that that's going to continue to be true, right?
Yeah, you won't be able to break out of it.
Right.
And the opposite's true too. If you're, his goal and my goal, well, his goal is to heal faster than the doctors think he can, right? And he's not necessarily a really competitive guy, but it's this goal that's helping propel him forward. And we all of us, all three of us, have some sort of a goal right now. I imagine that we're going. No, I want to prove this to be possible. Dang it, I'm going to make it freaking happen. And that moves us. We tell that story over and over again instead, and that drives us forward. And we get locked in. Some of us too much, but anyway.
Oh, there might be a little story there. Hey, Kyle, I know. We talked about your background and things. I really want to, give you an opportunity to speak a bit about your business and how all of this has informed your practice as you relate with your clients or work with businesses. Can you explain how this all ties together?
Yeah, for sure. So when I left, the Alpha Academy was the name of that program. So when we left from California to come up here to be close to my wife's family, I said, I want to have just as much impact here as we were down there or more. And I believe that, and I believe I already have done that, and I'm still doing that. But there's more to do. I remember I was driving home from some appointment, and I was listening to Jim Quick's book, Limitless. And in the book, he's talking about having a vision. And I had already been thinking about and praying about and wanting a clear vision for my business. And so I paused the video, and obviously, I have a faith. So this is how a lot of things happen for me. Yep. So I said, God, just give me my vision, just give it to me. So please deliver. Well, he did. He's not a genie. I can't rub a lamp, but it felt like I did that day, which is I'm very grateful. And it was, I want you to help thousands of business owners shift their mindsets and habits so I can transform their hearts, so he can impact their hearts. Right. And that, I heard that. It was one of those voices that's not your own type things. And then I spent the next 15 minutes driving home crying because it was so deeply moving for me. And that was the connection that I needed, because that helped me go, okay, now I know why I'm doing what I'm doing. What's the real purpose here? I want to transform lives, but I can't really do it because people have to be transformed themselves. It's not up to me. I can't go, transform, Fatty. You do it. Like, it doesn't work. Right. It'd be amazing, but it doesn't work. So that happened. And I started to develop even more deeply the framework that I had. And what I've realized, two more things here. What I've realized from all the experiences that I've had is that leadership has a framework to it. There's four fundamental pillars in my experience when it comes to leadership. And there are four things: self-awareness, accountability, growth, and empowerment. And I describe it to people as a leadership house. The foundation of our leadership is self-awareness. Mm-hmm. Without self-awareness, you can't truly lead well, and no way you're going to build a leadership house that anybody wants to be in. So high levels of self-awareness are vital. Yeah. Then accountability is the nails that holds that leadership house together. So if you think about what we've been talking about, underlying it is that accountability. Having people to talk to, having people to say, hey, you're a little off track here, or have you considered this? Having that mentor, having that coach, or having that friend that really cares and points out when things are not where you said you wanted them to be. Mm-hmm. Then growth is the walls and the roof. And so this is where in any home over the course of time, people at a minimum are painting the walls, right? Often they're moving a wall, or they're moving furniture, or they're replacing carpet or tile or whatever. But this is what we need to do in our leadership. The little nuances of change in our leadership allows us to influence and lead people better. And then sometimes it's this complete remodel, because we hit that point of, wait, I don't want to hit rock bottom, or we did hit rock bottom. And that's where we make those big adjustments. And we have that growth that happens as a result. And then empowerment's the windows and doors. So this is where people see into your leadership, and they start to observe what you're doing, and they want to be a part of it. And then as they become a part of it, you empower them to achieve the things that they want to achieve as you observe them and their leadership and what they do. And so those are the four components of the leadership house, and what I help my clients build as it relates to their leadership. Mm. I have a program and all that's tied to that, but that's the fundamental pillars of what makes my clients grow in their leadership. Mm.
It sounds like it's self-leadership.
Yes, big time. But you can't do it alone. A big portion of the book is, a quarter of it's about accountability and having that team around you. I call it a personal advisory board, and having that personal advisory board around you that points out when your check engine light is on and you actually need to get your truck to the shop, because we ignore that all the time, right? But they serve as the person that says, hey, your light's on. I can't take you to the shop to do this work, but I'm going to keep pointing it out to you until you do something about it.
Can I, right in the very beginning, when you said the voice that's not mine.
Yeah.
Which, I kind of point to that, the infinite wisdom and, the universal kind of idea. And there's so much value in that, because for me, when I hear that gentle voice, sometimes comes in as a whisper, I know it's 100% reliable. It's not very predictable, but it's, when it's going to come, like you said, like, give it to me now. No, I have some things to do first, kind of a thing. But the thing that I like about it is it is reliable, and when you get in touch with it and tuned with it, it gives you the why. And for me, what I'm experiencing is I can trust on the how too.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because it reveals, it unfolds you. If you're willing to grab onto that rope, going back to your metaphor, if you're willing to hang on to that rope, it will inform you what those next steps are. Is that part of your program in there, is pointing people into that direction too?
To finding that voice?
Well, yeah, to like Fatih talks about, we have this kind of like the one mind used in two different ways. There's the intellect side, which is really, really good for things that
Yeah.
but for the things that you don't know,
Yeah.
there almost seems to be a need for another partnership, an intervent. You know what I mean? Like,
yes, and I do. And some people are more open to it. Some people that I coach are Christians, and so I can be super direct and have that exact conversation with
right.
them in a way that I would. And then people aren't, and so it's a little bit different approach. But yesterday I was coaching somebody. At the end of the call, she was trying to figure out whether she should buy these two, or lease to buy these two different properties. And so we were having the conversation and coached around it, and she got some real clarity on what she could do to figure it out. And then I asked her, do you like to meditate? Do you meditate? And she said, yeah, I'm not very good at it, but I do it. And I said, okay, well, that's fine. And I asked her, where do you like to do it? And she told me. And I said, why don't you do that? Spend some time in the next few days, and next time we meet, take some time to have done that, and then give me some feedback on what you heard. And then I also offered to pray about it for her. So on the call, we prayed, and that's one way that I've challenged people. And then another way, I just did it today with my client, and he's got this crazy business that's doing super well, but there's some funkiness with cash flow and some frustrations that are happening. And so we were talking about that. And at the end of the call, I challenged him to just go for a walk, take some time, and picture what your ideal future would be like. What does that look like? And I trust that if God's going to speak to him in that, that's going to be a great time for that to happen, because he's being open to what's possible. Because that's often what I find is when you're open to what's possible and vulnerable enough to go, okay, I'm open to whatever is possible here, whatever I need to change or whatever could be in the future, that opens up, and then you could start to hear that intuition or that voice that it brought to you.
Yeah.
I like to call it intuition. And even though sometimes we reach for, like something outside of ourselves, right? I think it's oftentimes the same thing, because if it comes in the form of intuition, we call it intuition, is the best way that we can relate to it, but we don't quite know what intuition is either, right? Mm-hmm. So call it intuition, call it guidance, call it your higher self, call it God, call it what you want, right? It's a knowing, right? Mm-hmm. It's a knowing. It's the ability to also receive that message, that that knowing, like to be open to it, to listen to it, right? Mm-hmm. So I love that you point people in that direction, because we do already always have the answers within ourselves. The thing that doesn't allow us to hear it is all of the noise on this other side.
Yeah, which requires, I mean, if you're good at it, you find ways to create that space of quiet, that space of listening. And it's amazing what happens. If I was laying in bed last night and I was just like, God, what's the method you want me to take to finding these clients? Or am I taking the right method? And I just listened and I got some answers. And I can't get there if I'm busy listening to this podcast or listening to that book, or just drowning myself in stuff and things. Sometimes we just need to be. Yeah. And I think often for people that are getting close to rock bottom, this is one of the struggles of the guys in the program and some of my clients, is that they're not just being, they're not just embracing being with themselves and what happens with that. They're terrified of that, especially folks that are getting close to rock bottom, because it's really scary to reflect on where you are and who you are in that moment, because you're probably not too happy with who you are. I know I wasn't when I was at that moment and talking to my parents on the phone. It was really embarrassing and scary. But if you be with yourself in that moment, it's gonna make a big difference to help you take that one little step towards, instead of going down, going up, climbing up, grabbing a hold of that rope and climbing up out of that pit.
Yeah. And it's really about slowing down, right? Because meditation is a way of slowing down. Going for a walk in nature, you're just slowing down to be able to see beyond yourself, truly, to not be so wrapped up in your thoughts. I love it. Rick is pulling out his prompts.
This is my snow globe.
I love it.
So when you're really busy, this is what you're doing. You're shaking your snow globe, right? And there's no clarity there.
Right.
But the minute you stop, things settle.
Yeah. Nice.
Right.
It's like a muddy glass of water, right?
Yeah.
How do you keep stirring it, hoping that the mud will? No, you let it sit there. Yeah. Like nature's given us the answers.
Yeah.
It's like, but we tend to be going so fast. We miss the turns, we miss the hills, we hit the curbs.
Yeah, yes, we do. And we smash our heads on the ground, unfortunately, sometimes, literally.
Oh, I love our conversation, Kyle. It's been.
So I'm going to put in the chat all our information. I'm going to put Kyle's information with the links so that people can just click on there. It's already on the on the podcast notes, in the show notes, and on YouTube, but just putting it in the chat so everyone can get in touch with you. Is there anything else you would like to share with our audience?
Yeah, we'll give you the last word, not to put any pressure on you.
We've been talking about some really good stuff, and I would just say, take a moment to give yourself an honest look at where you are in any of these. And if anything struck you strongly, for the listeners, if anything struck you, then listen to that, follow that path and go for it. Because if you're listening to this, you might be in the midst of a downward spiral, or you may be coming out of it. But either way, what we're talking about can help you with that. So that'd be one thing. The second is, we touched a tiny bit on some of the content in my book, but ultimately I talk a lot about mindsets and habits in that book. And if you embrace many, if only a few of them, but if you embrace many of those mindsets and habits, it will help you prevent hitting that rock bottom, because of the pillars, because it's based on those 4 pillars that I shared. You'll learn how to become more self-aware. You'll create that accountability in your life. You'll maintain a growth mindset, and then you'll be able to empower others, which makes you more attractive and which brings more people around you as well, which ultimately helps you with self-awareness, accountability, and more growth. And it's super synergistic. Right. So the book dives into it's a focus on business leadership and helping people become people first leaders. But ultimately, you got to be first in that equation. You got to take care of yourself first. Even in the Bible, love God, but you got to love your God, love yourself, and love yourself like you love your neighbor. The other way around, love your neighbor like you love yourself, and you got to do that. But if we don't know how to take an honest look at how much we love ourselves, it's difficult to get to that place of contribution.
Right, and have the courage to do that.
Yeah,
right?
Totally.
Right.
Absolutely.
I love it. Can you share with us the title of your book and your podcast? I know you have a podcast. You just rebranded the podcast as well.
Yep.
So the audience knows.
Yeah. So the book's called Sage Leadership, a 4-part framework for becoming a people first leader. Amazon, Barnes & Noble, various other retailers for sure. And then the podcast is Blue Shirt Leadership Podcast. So its primary focus is on blue collar business owners and helping them to lead like the self-aware, accountable, growth-minded, and empowering leader that I talk about. So
excellent. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for coming on. And we want to invite everyone to subscribe, like, follow. Did I leave anything behind?
I don't know.
The podcast, leave us an honest review. We really appreciate it. Give us feedback, share your comments, share your questions so we can address them on the show.
Yeah.
And keep on spreading the word.
Yeah.
We're all here trying to amplify our impact. We're here, we're all coaches, and we want to help you not be stuck.
Yeah, and I know Kyle very approachable. So if you hear anything that you like in this podcast, reach out to him. I mean, any questions, more clarity around any of his programs, and and definitely check out your book. That in itself is part of your legacy, Kyle.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Thank you for doing that. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And just real quick, there's an easy way to get a hold of me and be able to communicate. That's like, it's not a discovery call. It doesn't turn into a sales pitch, because I know some people are afraid of that. Yeah. I have a Facebook group, and if you do facebook.com/group and then type in Blue Shirt Group, there's a bunch of business owners and leaders that I'm building it. So it's fairly new. There's not a lot of members right now, but I'm building it. And the point is to do what we've talked about here, to create that accountability, that support, to be real with each other, exchange ideas, those types of things. So,
and I believe people can get to it through the link tree, because I feel like that's how I got to it. I just clicked on your link tree and I got to your Facebook group. So
cool. I'll make sure. Yeah.
If you want to get in touch with them, just go through the link tree and it's on there. I'm pretty sure it's on there.
Okay. Right.
All right.
No better than you.
Hey, there's a lot going on. I had that ding
making on all the links.
I appreciate it.
All right. Okay. I'm gonna hit the magic button, and
thank you again, Kai.
Yeah. All the very best. All the very best. All right.